Ariane, a 74-year-old woman, recounts her near-death experience. After an unexplained illness leads to her death, Ariane awakens in a hospital room, stunning her grieving family and the medical staff. She describes being in a realm filled with divine light and meeting Jesus, who sends her back to deliver a message about the future. She recalls seeing a vision where Elon Musk is at the center of critical choices affecting humanity's fate. It started suddenly. The illness that would ultimately take Ariane's life. The doctors couldn't name it, and it progressed too quickly for them to counteract. Her daughter, Clara, rushed her to the hospital, desperation lining her face as she gripped her mother's hand in the ambulance. Beside them, her grandson Michael followed closely, honking and weaving through traffic to keep up. In those moments, Ariane felt their love more than their fear. But she also felt something bigger, something inevitable pulling at her very being. When her body finally gave out, it felt like releasing a weight she'd carried for years. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Life at NDE today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Hit subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith. Ariane's world shifted. The sterile hospital walls faded into a brilliance she could never describe. She found herself enveloped in an all-encompassing light, warm, alive, and knowing. It wasn't just illumination, it was a presence. Peace replaced every trace of earthly pain and worry. And she understood she was somewhere beyond life's boundaries. And then, she saw him. Jesus stood before her, his eyes meeting hers with a depth that saw everything. Every joy, every regret, every secret she had carried. His gaze wasn't condemning but lovingly truthful, exposing her whole being and accepting her entirely. She couldn't speak, couldn't move, and didn't need to. His voice wasn't audible but resonated within her, filling every corner of her existence. Ariane, he said, her name rolling over her like a bomb. Your work is not done. As much as she wanted to stay in that perfect presence, the weight of his words anchored her. Images flooded her mind, visions of Earth, of humanity teetering on the edge of two possible futures. She saw Elon Musk as a central figure, surrounded by the immense potential of his creations. On one side, they brought harmony between humanity, technology, and faith. On the other, a cold, lifeless world where machines dominated and humanity's soul was lost. Jesus' voice came again, this time steady and commanding, pray for him. For the choices he makes will ripple through all of creation. Suddenly, the brilliance began to fade. She felt herself being pulled back, away from the perfect light and into the confines of her frail body. The next thing she knew, she gasped for air in her hospital bed. Clara's grief-stricken face turned to shock and disbelief. "Mom?" Clara whispered, stepping back as if afraid the sight before her might disappear. Ariane forced her heavy lips to move. "I'm back," she rasped, her voice dry and fragile. She struggled to sit up, her mind spinning with the urgency of the message she had been sent back to deliver. Jesus' words echoed in her heart, binding her to the mission that now consumed her, to share the vision she had seen and prepare humanity for what lay ahead. As Ariane lay in the hospital bed, the weight of what she had seen pressed heavily on her. Her family, still reeling from the shock of her return, hovered nearby. Clara sat at her side, gripping her hand tightly, while Michael stood at the foot of the bed, his brow furrowed in both concern and disbelief. Despite their emotions, Ariane knew she couldn't wait to share what she had been shown. "I saw him," she began, her voice still raspy but gaining strength with each word. "Jesus. He sent me back for a reason." Clara's face softened with worry. "Mom, you've been through so much. Maybe this is just," her words trailed off, leaving the thought unfinished. Ariane shook her head. "No, Clara. I know what I saw. And I know why I'm here. He showed me our world and what's coming." She paused, searching their faces for understanding. "He showed me two futures. In one, humanity uses its gifts, our technology, our faith, to build a world full of harmony and light. In the other, we're consumed by what we create. Machines take over, and we lose our humanity." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "You're saying Jesus showed you the future?" he asked skeptically. Ariane's eyes locked onto his. "Yes. And it's not set in stone. That's why I'm here. To tell you what I saw and to warn you. He showed me a man at the center of it all." "A man?" Clara asked, leaning closer. "Who?" "Elon Musk," Ariane said firmly. Michael let out a sharp laugh. "The guy with the rockets and electric cars?" "Grandma, no offense. But why would Jesus care about him?" "Because his work is at the crossroads of our future," Ariane replied, her tone unwavering. "What he's building, the technology, the systems, they have the power to save us or destroy us. And right now, he's standing on the edge, about to make decisions that will ripple through generations." Clara's eyes filled with tears as she tried to process her mother's words. "Mom, this is all, it's so much. How are we supposed to help someone like him?" "We pray," Ariane said simply. "Not just for him, but for all of us. Jesus showed me that the future isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create with every choice we make. But we need guidance, faith, and wisdom to choose the right path." Michael rubbed the back of his neck, still grappling with his grandmother's words. "So, what, we just sit around and hope Elon Musk makes the right decisions?" "No," Ariane said, her voice firm. "We act. We share this message. We remind people that our humanity is tied to our faith, our compassion, and our choices. Technology isn't the enemy, it's a tool. But if we let it, it can control us. And that's when we lose everything." The room fell silent as her words sank in. Clara wiped her eyes, still struggling but beginning to see the conviction in her mother's face. Michael looked away, his expression unreadable, while Ariane's heart burned with the urgency of her task. She didn't know if they believed her yet, but she couldn't let doubt stop her. "The future isn't set," she repeated softly. "But it's coming, and we have to be ready." Ariane's return and her urgent message about the future sparked a range of reactions among her family and the community. Clara remained supportive but cautious, her practical nature making it hard to fully accept what she had heard. Michael, skeptical as ever, struggled to reconcile his grandmother's account with his understanding of the world. Despite this, Ariane pressed forward, determined to fulfill the mission Jesus had given her. At home, strange occurrences began to unsettle her. The lights in her small house flickered in rhythmic patterns that felt deliberate. At first, Ariane dismissed it as faulty wiring. But the timing of the flickers, often during her prayers or moments of deep thought, left her uneasy. One evening, as she prepared for bed, she heard faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls. The words were indistinct, but the tone carried urgency, as though something unseen was trying to communicate. "Mom, it's probably just your imagination," Clara said when Ariane mentioned the whispers. But Clara's voice held a slight tremor, betraying her own unease. Ariane's grandchildren, Michael and his younger brother, Thomas, were less dismissive. Michael, despite his doubts, began noticing odd patterns in the house. Electronics malfunctioned without explanation. And on one occasion, the family's old radio turned on by itself, broadcasting static interspersed with faint, indecipherable voices. "This is weird," Michael admitted reluctantly, watching the radio with a mixture of curiosity and unease. "But it doesn't prove anything, Grandma." "Maybe not," Ariane replied. "But it's not random. These things are happening for a reason. Something doesn't want this message to get out." Her certainty unsettled them. But Michael and Thomas couldn't entirely dismiss her words. Thomas, who was quieter and more introspective, began keeping a journal of the strange phenomena. He recorded each flicker of the lights, each unexplained sound, and every instance where the atmosphere in the house seemed to shift. "If nothing else, we'll have a record," Thomas said when Michael questioned him. "What if there's something we're missing?" The signs weren't limited to Ariane's home. Clara, who worked at a local clinic, started hearing odd stories from patients and colleagues. A coworker mentioned a vivid dream about a world filled with machines, devoid of human touch or warmth. Another spoke of recurring dreams featuring Elon Musk standing before a massive fork in the road, unsure which path to take. Clara couldn't ignore the parallels to her mother's vision. And though she didn't admit it outright, she began to wonder if there was truth to Ariane's message. As the strange occurrences multiplied, Ariane's resolve grew stronger. One night, during her evening prayers, the whispers returned, clearer this time. They seemed to form words, urging her to continue sharing the message. The moment was both terrifying and affirming, a reminder that her mission was being watched by forces both good and opposing. "You have to keep going, Mom," Clara said one morning after another restless night. "I don't fully understand this, but I can't deny that something is happening." Ariane nodded, grateful for Clara's cautious support. "I know it's hard to believe, but this is bigger than us. We have to stay strong." Despite the growing unease, Ariane's grandchildren decided to help her spread her story. Michael, leveraging his knowledge of social media, began posting about her experience. He shared her visions, described the strange occurrences, and framed it as a call for people to reflect on humanity's relationship with technology and faith. Thomas, meanwhile, focused on gathering evidence of the unexplained phenomena, hoping to add credibility to their efforts. The online response was mixed. Some people were inspired, drawn to Ariane's sincerity and the urgency of her message. Others mocked the posts, dismissing them as the ramblings of an old woman desperate for attention. Michael, though irritated by the skepticism, pushed forward, determined to get the message to as many people as possible. Grandma. Some of these comments are brutal, Michael said one afternoon, scrolling through his phone. People think you're crazy. Ariane smiled gently. It doesn't matter what they think of me. What matters is that the message reaches those who need to hear it. Her words resonated, and Michael found himself feeling a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced before. As more people learned of Ariane's story, the strange phenomena seemed to intensify. Friends and neighbors reported seeing flashes of light near Ariane's home or hearing faint, melodic hums when passing by. The local community grew divided, with some rallying around Ariane and others dismissing her as delusional. But even among the skeptics, seeds of curiosity were planted. One day, a woman named Sarah knocked on Ariane's door. She introduced herself as a journalist investigating unusual phenomena in the area. "I've heard about what's happening here," Sarah said, her voice cautious but intrigued. "Would you be willing to share your story?" Ariane agreed, seeing the opportunity as another step in her mission. As Sarah listened to Ariane recount her experience, her initial skepticism gave way to something more open, though she didn't say it outright. "There's more to this than I expected," Sarah admitted as she left. "Thank you for sharing." The encounter reaffirmed Ariane's belief that her story, no matter how extraordinary, was meant to be told. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but she also knew she wasn't alone. The signs, both encouraging and unsettling, were a reminder that her mission mattered, and she was determined to see it through. The decision to share Ariane's story beyond her immediate family marked the beginning of a journey fraught with both resistance and hope. With her grandchildren's help, Ariane began spreading the message she had been entrusted with. Michael created a social media account dedicated to the story, posting videos of Ariane recounting her near-death experience, her encounter with Jesus, and the visions she had seen of humanity's future. Thomas compiled records of the strange phenomena surrounding Ariane's return, hoping these would lend credibility to her message. At first, the response was slow. Posts gathered only a few likes and comments, many of which were dismissive or mocking. Skeptics accused Ariane of fabricating her story for attention, while others claimed she was being manipulated by her family. Michael, frustrated by the negativity, considered giving up. "Grandma, it's like shouting into the void," he said one evening, his tone heavy with defeat. "Nobody's listening." Ariane placed a comforting hand on his arm. "Don't focus on those who mock us, Michael. This message isn't for everyone. It's for those who are ready to hear it." Michael nodded, inspired by her quiet determination. He redoubled his efforts, creating posts that highlighted the urgency of Ariane's message. He began reaching out to influencers and local journalists, hoping to amplify her voice. Slowly, the tide began to turn. One day, a local reporter named Sarah, who had previously interviewed Ariane, published an article about her story. The piece, titled A Vision of Two Futures, Ariane's Warning for Humanity, garnered attention from larger media outlets. Within days, news stations and online platforms began picking up the story. Ariane found herself at the center of a growing conversation about faith, technology, and the crossroads humanity faced. Invitations for interviews began pouring in. At first, Ariane hesitated. She had never sought the spotlight and was wary of how her message might be distorted. But Clara encouraged her to accept the invitations. "Mom, this is what you've been preparing for," Clara said. "People need to hear this, even if it's hard for them to understand." Ariane agreed and began appearing on local news shows and podcasts. Each time, she spoke with clarity and conviction, recounting her experience without embellishment. Her sincerity struck a chord with many, even those who initially doubted her. She emphasized that her message wasn't about fear or condemnation, but about hope and the power of choice. "The future isn't set," she said during one interview. "We have the power to shape it through our actions, our prayers, and our faith. But we must act now, before it's too late." As Ariane's story gained traction, it sparked debates across various communities. Religious leaders weighed in, some praising her message as a timely reminder of humanity's spiritual responsibilities, while others dismissed it as unfounded. Scientists and technologists discussed her warnings about the potential dangers of unchecked innovation, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence and space exploration. The inclusion of Elon Musk in her vision added a layer of intrigue, drawing attention from his supporters and critics alike. Musk himself remained silent on the matter, though his name began trending alongside Ariane's. Speculation about his role in her vision fueled discussions online and in the media. Some viewed him as a potential savior, while others saw him as a symbol of humanity's hubris. Ariane refused to comment on the specifics of his work, focusing instead on the broader implications of her message. "This isn't about one man," she said during a televised interview. "It's about all of us and the choices we make." Elon Musk is a key figure because of his influence, but the responsibility lies with every individual. We must pray for him, yes, but we must also look inward and ask ourselves how we're contributing to the future. Despite her growing platform, Ariane continued to face resistance. Online trolls mocked her faith, and some media outlets portrayed her as a delusional elderly woman seeking attention. Clara, worried about the toll this was taking on her mother, urged her to take a break. "You've done enough, Mom," Clara said one evening. "Let someone else carry the message for a while." Ariane shook her head. "This isn't about me, Clara. It's about the message. If I stop now, how can I expect others to keep going?" Clara sighed but didn't argue further. She knew her mother's resolve was unshakable. As Ariane continued her mission, the strange phenomena surrounding her persisted. Lights flickered during interviews. Electronic devices malfunctioned without explanation, and she often felt a presence watching her. These occurrences unnerved those around her but seemed to embolden Ariane. She interpreted them as reminders of the stakes involved in her mission. One particularly unsettling incident occurred during a live interview. As Ariane spoke about the visions she had seen, the studio lights began to dim and flicker. The hosts, startled, tried to maintain composure. But the atmosphere grew tense. When the lights stabilized, Ariane addressed the audience directly. "This is a reminder," she said calmly. "The forces opposing this message are real, but they will not prevail. We must stand firm in faith and hope." The incident went viral, further amplifying her story. Some viewers dismissed it as a technical glitch, while others saw it as evidence of a spiritual battle playing out in real time. Amid the growing attention, Ariane's family found themselves drawn deeper into her mission. Michael continued managing the online presence, responding to messages and moderating discussions. Thomas's Journal of Unexplained Events became a valuable resource, lending weight to Ariane's claims. Even Clara, despite her reservations, began speaking out in support of her mother, sharing her own experiences and reflections. "I didn't believe at first," Clara admitted during a podcast interview. "But the things I've seen and felt, I can't deny them anymore. My mother's message is real, and it's something we all need to hear." The collective effort of Ariane and her family began to bear fruit. Communities across the country started organizing prayer groups and discussions inspired by her message. People shared stories of how her words had prompted them to reflect on their lives and priorities. Some reported dreams and visions of their own, further fueling the sense that a larger movement was taking shape. Through it all, Ariane remained humble. She knew the message wasn't hers, she was merely its messenger. Her role was to plant seeds, trusting that others would nurture them. "I'm just one voice," she often said. "But together, we can create a chorus that changes the world." As her story spread globally, Ariane began to receive letters and messages from people who had been moved by her words. One letter, in particular, stood out. It came from a scientist who had been working on advanced AI technology. In the letter, he confessed that Ariane's story had made him question the ethical implications of his work. "I've always believed in progress," he wrote. "But I've started to wonder, at what cost? Your words reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that humanity's soul must guide its mind. Thank you for helping me see that." Ariane read the letter aloud to her family, tears streaming down her face. "This is why I came back," she said. "This is why I was sent." The days ahead were sure to bring more challenges. But Ariane's resolve only grew stronger. She knew the journey was far from over. But she also knew she wasn't walking it alone. Her family, her community, and countless others were now part of the mission. Together, they carried the message forward, shining a light on the path humanity had yet to choose. As Ariane's story continued to spread, the impact of her message began to ripple far beyond her small town. People from across the country and even around the world reached out, sharing their own experiences, doubts, and revelations. Her story became a catalyst for conversations about humanity's future, the role of technology, and the power of faith. One day, Ariane received a letter from Maria, a young woman struggling to reconcile her faith with a world increasingly dominated by technology. Maria described feeling lost and disconnected, her belief in humanity and its purpose shaken by the relentless march of innovation. But hearing Ariane's story had sparked something within her, a desire to pray, to reconnect with her spiritual roots, and to seek a path forward grounded in faith. "Your story gave me hope," Maria wrote. It reminded me that even in a world that feels overwhelming and cold, there is light, there is love, and there is a greater purpose. Thank you for sharing it. Ariane held Maria's letter close, tears streaming down her face. This, she knew, was the reason she had been sent back. Not to change the world single-handedly, but to ignite hope and action in others. Maria's words strengthened Ariane's resolve to continue her mission. No matter the challenges, despite the growing support, resistance persisted. Online skeptics dissected her story, accusing her of fabrication or delusion. Some religious leaders dismissed her vision as unorthodox, while technologists questioned her grasp of the innovations she spoke of. Yet, amidst the noise, a core group of believers emerged, drawn to the sincerity and urgency of her message. Ariane's family became her closest allies. Clara, once doubtful, now spoke openly about the transformation she had witnessed in her mother and the strange events that had surrounded their family since Ariane's return. Michael and Thomas continued their work online, managing discussions and amplifying the message to wider audiences. Their collective efforts gave Ariane a platform she never could have imagined. One of the most profound moments came during a gathering at a local community center, organized by Clara and supported by neighbors who believed in Ariane's mission. The event brought together people from all walks of life. Some were drawn by curiosity, others by faith, and many by a deep yearning for answers. Ariane stood before the crowd, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. I was shown two futures, she said. One filled with light, where technology and humanity work together to create a world of harmony and connection. The other, dark and cold, where machines replace human touch and the soul of humanity is lost. These futures are not set in stone. They depend on the choices we make. Starting now. The room was silent, every eye fixed on Ariane. She spoke of Elon Musk, his pivotal role in shaping humanity's path, and the responsibility that lay with each individual to guide the future through faith, compassion, and prayer. This isn't just about one man or one vision, she said. It's about all of us. We are the stewards of this world, and we must act with care and wisdom. Technology is not the enemy, it is a tool. But if we let it, it can control us. We must ensure it serves humanity, not the other way around. Her words resonated deeply, sparking discussions that lasted long after the event ended. People left with a renewed sense of purpose, inspired to take action in their own lives. Some formed prayer groups, while others began initiatives to bridge the gap between technology and humanity. Ariane's message was no longer just a story, it was a movement. As the weeks turned into months, the strange phenomena surrounding Ariane's life continued. Lights flickered during important moments. Electronic devices behaved unpredictably, and Ariane's dreams remained vivid and prophetic. While unsettling, these occurrences reinforced her belief that she was part of something far greater than herself. One night,